thank you so much for accepting our invitation for today's call, Mr. Draper, and really pleasure to meet you up in personal and have conversation regarding the lovely, beautiful thing developed by mankind, which is Bitcoin, of course, and blockchain. And
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. I'll just straightforward jump to the question, and I'll just start with the first one, which, of course, you believe in blockchain, and so do we. And please show some light upon how you may think blockchain technology is going to change the world in total.
So associated technologies are going to change the world. So it's Bitcoin, it's the blockchain, it's smart contracts, and then you combine that with artificial intelligence and all the data, all the big data that's out there, and using deep learning, you suddenly have a platform from which you can transform some of the biggest industries in the world. And this is this is the biggest and most exciting thing I've ever faced in the venture capital business. We were early on investors in the internet, and we saw how that transformed information and communications, your job, journalism. It changed gaming, entertainment, taxis. It's changed a lot of industries, and they're all in that 10 to 100 billion dollar range. Maybe some are a little bigger, but the huge industries of the world, finance and insurance and real estate and healthcare and government, are the biggest industries, all in the trillions of dollars, and they're going to potentially be changed by this new platform created around Bitcoin. And so I'll give you a couple of interesting examples. Well, there are some obvious ones. Venture capital is being changed because you saw in Q3 of last year, there was more money raised in ICOs than there was in venture capital. That may have been a temporary phenomenon or maybe a permanent one, but in any case, it's changing our industry. In finance, well, in commerce, suddenly we have a currency that is decentralized, it's open, it's global. I can take my Bitcoin from one country to another. I can pull it down. I can move to another country and pull the Bitcoin down. I mean, if you're stuck in Syria and you're trying to get out, you have the Syrian money is not accepted anywhere in the world. And you can, if you had it in Bitcoin, it could move right out of the country. You could go to another place. I had a friend in Argentina, and he said that his fortune has been, his family fortune has been really destroyed 3 times in his life, and all by currency manipulation. And he's only 30 years old, and he went and said he built a great company in Argentina around Bitcoin. So commerce, finance, all those businesses are going to change. It's just a matter of time as entrepreneurs start to build these really interesting applications. But I'll give you another interesting example, and it's healthcare. Imagine you control your own data. And that data includes all your healthcare records, but it also has your blood test results and your genetic history, Fitbit results, and what you had for breakfast and who you've met and where you've traveled and everything else. All that data that's out there available for you. Well, it turns out that data is more valuable to a doctor than any, or to you as a person, than any doctor could ever come up with on their own. And they can't ask you nearly enough questions to get all that data. And so if you and I each have a headache, the normal doctor would just say, take 2 aspirin, call me in the morning. But your headache might be a migraine. And my headache might be because I got bitten by a tick. I was in Fire Island. And I need antibiotics. So all of these things are going to change. We're going to have much more individualized healthcare coming from the cloud than we ever could from an individual doctor who's spent 12 years memorizing things. No doctor could possibly come up with all the diagnoses that the cloud can come up with because of all that data. And then, and so I actually think data digitized healthcare is going to be a huge, huge market for a lot of great entrepreneurs to tap into. And then government itself, both helping government do a better job and having government be in some cases, creating new governments or transforming failed governments or whatever. That all can happen because the Bitcoin and blockchain and smart contracts can actually create a perfect ledger. They can keep perfect track of data. They can do micro payments. They can do all the things that a bureaucrat does today. And so you could actually see that your health insurance done in one country, you could have your Social Security or your pension done in another country. You could, you certainly wouldn't want to use California for your DMV. All these countries now are going to have to compete for us and use the blockchain and Bitcoin to transform the way they do business. I mean, there's no reason why welfare system isn't done into Bitcoin wallets. It's just, why would we want a currency that is sort of tied? I call it political currency versus cryptocurrency. You either have the fiat or political currency, which is tied to some politician or another, some dictator, or whoever is printing the money. They're deciding how to print that money based on their own self-interest. Well, now you've got a currency that is completely open, decentralized. Nobody's self-interest is driving this currency. And I think that this is a really exciting time. I mean, the world's going to change. I think the dictatorships and fiefdoms and tribalism, I think that's going away. I think the borders are falling. People can move. They can communicate this way through Skype or through email. They can travel, and they realize that the world is a very open and secure and interesting place, and that changes everybody's perspective. They can't just continually be sold fear by their government. Anyway, that was a long-winded answer to a short question.
But it was elaborated as much as you can. That's really humble. So I'll move to the next one. In 2013, you launched Draper University, an educational program that offers a crash course in entrepreneurship, which is more important to the young millennials like us, right? And how would the modules benefit the students which are looking forward to get an entrepreneurship inside them? And what advice would you like to give to the young aspirants who are there?
Yeah, so we started Draper University partly because people said that entrepreneurship couldn't be taught. And whenever anybody says something can't be done, I think, how would I do that? And so I went ahead and I started this school, and I thought, well, what does it take to become an entrepreneur? You have to be persistent and resilient, and you have to be willing to put up with whatever. You have to be able to subvert your ego. You have to open yourself to a lot of new ideas. You have to know how to sell. You have to know how finance works. There's some basic things that a lot of business schools will teach, but then there are these fundamental things like, what kind of person are you? How are you? Where are your emotional weaknesses? How do you overcome those? How if you go and go and go and you think the day is over, and then all of a sudden it keeps going, what does that mean to you? Can you keep going? Entrepreneurs have to do a lot of tough things. And so what I did is I created a course, and it's 5 weeks in the summer or 4 months in the fall. And 5 weeks in the summer we call hero training, and you hit the ground running. Everything is team-based, and as opposed to the individual. And I actually think that the current schooling system creates followers. It wants everybody in line. Nobody's supposed to make any mistakes, and they all line up and they do whatever the teacher says. They memorize what the teacher tells them. They get an A if they don't make any mistakes. Well, I think entrepreneurship's almost the opposite of that. You have to fail. You have to try things and fail. You have to be willing to and be embarrassed and do stupid things. You have to try unusual tacks at your market. So many things have to happen, and they have to be sort of more instinctive than intellectual. And intellectual is important too. But, so we have made a course that's really about that. It's team-based, so that you're stuck with a team. Because when you get out of school, it's all different. You have a team. You have to live and die by that team. You're trying to make that team successful. You have the challenge of finding a market. Getting a market built and finding a product that fits that market. It's wide open. It's very different from like the intellectual schooling where you just sort of are taken through it sort of by hand, and you kind of memorize this and memorize that, and then there's some critical thinking, but generally it isn't imaginative thinking, and I think you need a school with some imaginative thinking. So our school has really succeeded. When I started it, I was just, I didn't know what I was doing, and I was doing what I'm telling entrepreneurs to do. I was just sticking my neck out and giving it a shot. Yeah. But it turns out we've had now 1,000 students, and they've created 350 companies. They've come from 76 different countries, so they're from all over the world. And we've had 3 companies that have been started at Draper University that are quite extraordinary. One is a woman who created Survi Sarna, and she created something called Envision, which was a fiber line that goes up the fallopian tube and detects cancer without damaging the fallopian tube. Very fine line, and she started it at Draper University. She got her funding at Draper University. While she was at Draper University, some from me, but some from others. And she got FDA approval, and she just sold her business for $275 million. So we've already got that one success of that kind. We have another success, which was, since Draper University is sort of open, we taught Bitcoin 4 years ago. Stanford and Harvard are just creating their Bitcoin courses now. Mm-hmm. Well, we taught it 4 years ago, and 2 of our students went off and created something called Quantum, which is a number 20 coin in the world. It got up to $7 billion in value. Now it's down to about $1 billion. But 2 of our students just did that. And 5 of our students actually have created tokens and built very successful companies. And then we've had a couple of great Chinese successes. One's a yogurt company where he loved yogurt when he came to Draper University, and I thought, nobody trusts the milk, any of the dairy here in China. If I were a trustable dairy, I could deliver yogurt to everybody's house, and he did, and now that's I think it's worth about $100 million. So a lot of these students, and the students have done extraordinary things. They get promoted faster than any normal students, and they if they join a big company, and then they sort of stand out. We have a woman who's a race car driver who's in an ad. I don't know exactly how she's doing, but as a race car driver, I think she's doing very well. And as a promoter for women in sports, she's a real star. So we've had some amazing successes. and some failures, but some amazing success.
Really look up to you, how much depth you have gone into Draper University, that you remember each of the stars of the university. That's like impressive, really impressive. I would appreciate this.
I try to get to know all of their names, and I go to survival training with them. We have survival with Navy SEALs and Special Forces and Army Rangers, and we take them through a very difficult path, and I want to make sure that that path is something I can do. So, so I get to know them up at survival. And so, yeah, I try to keep tabs on them. The school definitely keeps tabs on them.
Out of 1,000 students, you know the names. That itself is something else.
I probably can remember about 400 or 500 of the 1,000 names.
Impressive, Mr. Draper.
But at the time, I knew them all.
Okay, I'll move to the next one. What would you like to comment in regards to the investment in future of blockchain and crypto startups focusing on blockchain and crypto purely?
You know, it's funny. It's a little different from an investment. I look at it as a new way of operating, a new way that the world can function and function better, and it creates more liquidity around the world. All those unbanked people are now banked, and there are all these micropayment opportunities that are extraordinary. There are some things that this new currency can do that other currencies couldn't do, and it's free and open as opposed to political currency, which is closed and politically driven. And so I think we are just kind of moving to a new world. And some people look at it as an investment, and I think that's nice, and it's a good thing to think about. But I think I'd think of it as a currency that eventually will become worth more just because it will spread farther and faster. And Bitcoin, there are only 21 million of them. So clearly, if Bitcoin becomes the currency of the world, it becomes worth a lot. So you could look at it as like a way of making money, but I look at it as a way the world should move so that we can all have a better life, and the world economy opens up, and it's free and it's fair and it's honest. And I think free and fair and honest are really what make, the best governments in the world are the free, fair, and honest governments. As soon as there's corruption in a government, that destroys an economy. As soon as a government clamps down on freedom, that takes a shot at the economy. And it's interesting seeing some of these governments try to respond to Bitcoin. Some are threatened and some look at it as an opportunity. China was clearly threatened by it. They made it illegal. They closed down their borders, and they're going to, I think their country, if they keep it that way, if they don't open up, their country is going to go into 20 years, 40 years of the dark ages where their economy slows down. Japan, seeing China make it illegal, Japan said Bitcoin's a national currency, and here's how you do an ICO in Japan and everything. And so they were attracting all of those entrepreneurs who were leaving China. They saw that, hey, this is an opportunity for us. And the U.S. has been sort of in the middle, non-committal, and that may be a good strategy for the U.S. They're torn. Do we overregulate and then all the entrepreneurs move to other countries, or all the technology starts in other countries, or do we let it rip and see what great technologies will come of this and have them kind of participate in our country? And I think, fortunately, we're leaning toward let it rip with a little bit of like, hey, don't overstep. And that, I think that works okay. But Binance was started in China, and they're a $10 billion market cap company, and they went from China. When China made it illegal, they said, well, we got to go somewhere else. And they went to Singapore, And when Singapore started to add more regulation, they went to Malta. So Malta is the big beneficiary because they're the most open to
Yeah.
what is happening in the Bitcoin world. So this is a very interesting dynamic, socio-economic dynamic, and we're going to see a new world.
Okay, that's really great as you have shared. So I would want to understand what's your view on, let's say, if you have said that China is pure anti against Bitcoin, and as well as Japan is coming in favor of Bitcoin. What suggestion you want to give to India? Because in India, it's kind of anti, as you say, US stays in the middle. Then in India, the government neither says it's illegal and neither considers it as a legal tender. So it stays in the between, it's in a dilemma. What advice you give to the people or the government of India?
Well, look, India, the people of India have had corrupt governments for a long time. Mm-hmm. And finally, there seems to be a leader who wants to clean that all up.
Sure.
And, and confidence in the rupee is not great. No matter what, it's not great. And I would look to India. I mean, it depends on what the leadership wants to do. If they really believe in the future of India and they really want all the people of India to do very well, the people of India need an honest currency. They need a currency they can trust. They need to feel that they will not be, pushed into something by a bureaucrat. They need to feel that freedom. If they feel that freedom and that honesty in government, they're going to thrive. So I think India should follow Japan's lead. India could be like one of the biggest economies in the world. They should follow Japan's lead, and they should say Bitcoin's a national currency. You can use Bitcoin or you can use rupees, and then guide people toward this new world. The country could be extraordinary at that point. And infrastructure isn't very good in India, and lots of problems in India that way. I believe that if the economy moves to India, I mean, think of all those incredible entrepreneurs that come out of India. I mean, India is made for this. It's a huge opportunity, and all those incredible entrepreneurs will start to figure out better, more ways of using Bitcoin and the blockchain and smart contracts and big data and artificial intelligence. And they'll just drive this whole new world. And this is it's a huge opportunity for India if they decide we want to be the place. And then, there'll be plenty of tax revenue to go build out infrastructure and do all the things that the government wants to do to make it a better place. So, the whole key is it's got to be, all the best countries in the world, all the countries in the world that have thrived economically have been the free, open, and fair ones. And India is relatively free, and it is relatively open. It has not been fair. And hopefully with the new, with Modi and his team and whoever, Modi, I don't know how many years he's got left, but hopefully next year there's another election. Can he re-up?
We believe he should re-up.
Yeah. So if he re-ups, then he's got 5 years. He could really make a huge impact for India for the next 40 years. And I think that you start by saying Bitcoin's a national currency, and then all the entrepreneurship that goes around it starts happening. And what he loses, he loses the way George Washington and Deng Xiaoping and Gorbachev lose. They push away their own power, and they gain a country that is extraordinary.
True.
And it's interesting, they become more powerful, but they don't understand that. It's hard for a politician to understand that by giving up power, you get more. By pushing the power away, you get more. And and he could be one of the greatest leaders of our time. I mean, I think George Washington, Deng Xiaoping, and Gorbachev all gave up their own power in order for the country to become extraordinary. And for those politicians, and I think Modi has that in him. You know, I think that's the possibility is there.
That's why those people are called the real leaders, isn't it? That's the reason. George Washington, I've been looking up to him since the revolution came in, and it's been great. So the real leaders always take right decisions for the people they're leading for. That's always been a
and you see, you know, I mean, what America became after George Washington gave away his power was extraordinary, and what Russia became for a while until Putin came, and he's another one of the control freaks. He doesn't do it that way. But Gorbachev was really extraordinary in letting the wall come down. He let the technology move across to Russia. Suddenly, Russia became a great country again for a while, and now it's an isolated country with a dictator taking money from us. And then I think the same thing with China. China had a 40-year run after Deng Xiaoping, 40-year run where they became extraordinary. And then this guy Xi came in, and he wants to control everything again. I think we need to take lessons from history. We need to understand that, hey, capitalism works, socialism doesn't. Freedom works, government control doesn't. The fair and open and honest government works, and a shrouded government that's corrupt doesn't. It's across the board. That's the way it works. And if you get a fair and free and open government, boom, and the next 40 years for your country become extraordinary. So I hope Modi takes that message.
Thank you so much. I would like to take a bit more of your time. I'm just enjoying your conversation with you. I would just say that what you think if ICOs and venture capitalism runs parallel, right? So what you think is the better way for entrepreneurs to raise funds?
Well, it depends on what the entrepreneur wants to do. If an entrepreneur is just building medical devices, then there's no real reason for a token, or at least none that I can imagine. And tokens are just a different business. It's like every entrepreneur should understand that what they're doing is what they want to achieve is probably the entrepreneurial piece that would probably use venture capital for funding. But if they build a token, it's almost like they have to run another business, the token business. But that token can help market their venture business. So I think entrepreneurs can look at both. I think they can look at tokens, and they can look at their own entrepreneurial ventures. Okay. And both are great ways of raising money. And when you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to get something going, just raise the money. Take the money, whether it comes in the form of venture capital, comes in the form of a token. You need that money to get going. So go with it. And make sure that you follow security laws of whatever country you're in. But get that money to drive your business.
So I'll move to the last question of today. What advice may you have for people looking to get started with cryptocurrencies? Because there are a lot of people who are still, untouched with this thing. So how would you suggest that?
Well, it's really easy. So I don't know what their hold up is. I think they have to believe in it, because they're putting what they believe to be real money up for something that they still believe might be funny money. Whereas what's really going on is they would be trading their funny money for what will be the future of real money. I think you're going to, so it's just a matter of motivation. I mean, like, what, technically go set up a Coinbase account and or get a ledger and go take some crypto down. It's not hard. I mean, you know, I am not very tolerant of long instruction cycles. Like, I can't put together furniture, but it didn't take me much to get my ledger and put the money on it and take it off. That part of it shouldn't hold people up. And a Coinbase account, you have to link it to your bank account, but otherwise it's not that hard either.
It's not that hard. Okay. I guess that's it for this evening, and evening for me and morning for you. And thank you so much, and thank you so much for appreciate your time.